Welcome to the World History 1 lecture series. At the end of each slide there will be a 10-second delay. Use this time to pause the presentation and complete your notes. When you are done, push play and you will move forward. This lecture will begin in 5 seconds.
Welcome to World History 1 Lecture 10.1 on Asia and Japan, and we have completed the cycle of civilization. We learned that civilizations are established, civilizations develop, civilizations sustain themselves, civilizations develop differently, civilizations rise and fall, and civilizations rebuild. And in looking at how civilizations rebuild, we learned that the collapse of a civilization can lead to the rise of a failed state. New ideas arise out of failed states, and these ideas form the foundation of the modern era, and we looked at Islam and Western Europe as examples. So now it's time for us to go back to the beginning and see if all civilizations fit within the idea of how civilizations are established. We already know that not everything fits on this chart. For example, prehistory, Paleo, and Neolithic era communities are not included because they are not civilizations. Sorry, caveman. But we're also going to learn that some civilizations do not meet the traditional definition of civilization. There are differences that can be cultural, developmental, or geographical, and we will look at Asia, Africa, and the Americas as an example. So with that said, let's go to the next slide. Before we go any further, we have to answer this question. What is a non-traditional civilization? Well, to answer this question, we're going to do a bit of basic math. We learned that culture is the distinctive features of a group that are learned behaviors. And if we add urban culture, or culture found in a city and its surroundings, we get civilization. We've seen many examples of this, including the Romans. Their culture is of the macho guys. They are in the city of Rome, so they have urban culture. So we have Roman civilization, the Roman Empire, and before it, the Roman Republic. Well, does this simple math problem work for all civilizations? Here's a culture, the Mongols. They are a horse-based culture. Do they have urban culture? Uh-oh, they don't. So they are a non-traditional civilization, unless you are the Mongols. Well, it's not just urban culture that can define a non-traditional civilization. So we're going to look at feudal Japan, Africa, and the Americas to see what other markers make a civilization different than the classical model of what is a civilization. Go to the next slide. Japan is a non-traditional civilization, but to understand why, we need to review what we learned in Unit 4 about connecting Asia to the West. The Silk Road connects eastern China to the Mediterranean basin and is used from the Han to the Yuan dynasties from 202 BCE to 1368 CE. The Silk Road is the primary way we transport goods and ideas from the east to the west, but it's not the only way. Trade maritime routes flow through the Indian Ocean, South China Sea, Red Sea, and Persian Gulf. And almost all these routes are ending up in the same place, Constantinople. So Constantinople is the primary endpoint for trade routes to China. But what happens once all this stuff gets to Constantinople? The Black Sea links northern Europe with Eastern Asia. So here's Constantinople, and all of these goods and ideas now flow north into northern Europe. Western Europe is linked via sea trade, the Mediterranean Sea, and river trade, the Danube River. So Constantinople is where everything comes in, and Constantinople is where we ship everything out to northern and western Europe. It becomes a very important place. Go to the next slide. It's not just that things move from east to west. It's what's being moved that makes the Silk Road and trade maritime routes so important. Goods move to the west and include spices from the Indian Ocean basin, textiles from India, China, and Southwest Asia, and porcelain from China and Persia. Europeans have never seen this stuff before, and when it hits the market, everybody who can afford it wants it. But technology moves in both directions and includes paper from China to the Islamic world, Byzantine and Western Europe. New crops like sugar from India. Vertical water wheels from classical Greece and Rome to the east. Horizontal water wheels from China to the west. Windmills from Persia. Printing and the compass from China, and the lantern sail, which was used in the Indian Ocean. All of these technological advancements and goods are moving across the Silk Road, and they are affecting both civilizations. Go to the next slide. All of this movement brings cultural diffusion west and south of India and China. All the great ideas in these two civilizations will spread everywhere. For example, religions and ideas spread. Buddhism spreads from China into Korea in 450 CE and Japan in 600 CE. Hinduism and Buddhism spread from India into Southeast Asia. That happens around 100 CE. And Islam spreads from Southwest Asia to West Africa, as well as Central and Southeast Asia between 638 to 1453 CE. Economic ideas also spread. Economics spread and include the use of paper money in Europe, which was first used in China around 800 to 900 CE and is something that we just take for granted today. So truly, paper money makes the world go round. Go to the next slide. With this in mind, what makes feudal Japan a non-traditional civilization? 3 words: limited cultural diffusion, and it's all because of geography. Japan is located east of the Korean Peninsula on a mountainous archipelago with 4 main islands. There are 4 islands in a chain or a line, and those islands are all mountainous. Plus, the Sea of Japan, East Sea, separates Japan from the Asian mainland. So, the geography of Japan insulates Japanese culture from significant cultural diffusion. You can't move goods and ideas from one place to another if it's almost impossible to move the people who are there in the first place. But some Chinese culture flows through Korea into Japan, including a system of writing, Chinese architecture like pagodas, and Buddhism. However, nothing flows from Japan back into the Asian mainland. For example, Japanese can read some Chinese writing. The symbols look similar, but it's not the same way for the Chinese. Chinese can read little Japanese. Go to the next slide. Because of this limited cultural diffusion, the Japanese are going to create things that are unique to their civilization. And 2 of those things focus on religion and social status. Shintoism is an ethnic religion unique to Japan. Starts around 500 BCE, and it is a state religion. You are worshiping the emperor of Japan. It coexists with Buddhism. So you either practice Buddhism or you're practicing Shintoism, which is the ethnic religion of Japan. Shintoism is a polytheistic religion that focuses on natural features, forces of nature, and ancestor worship. It relies heavily on Chinese philosophies like Confucianism, legalism, and Taoism. But none of these ideas are going back across the Sea of Japan into mainland Asia. So, Shintoism is not found in China, but elements of Confucianism, legalism, and Taoism are found in Japan. Japan also has a four-tier feudal system based on Confucius beliefs. The emperor is a figurehead. He is above the system. He is like a god, and the shogun is the actual ruler. Samurai are the warrior class. They're like your feudal knights. Farmers and peasants work the land, and artisans and merchants sell goods and services. So unlike many other social structures we have seen, the farmers and peasants are above artisans and merchants in the social system. These are two things that are unique to Japan, and it is this lack of cultural diffusion that makes Japan a non-traditional civilization. That's it for this lecture, and I look forward to seeing you in class.